Hamevora Leolam Baed. Hamevora Hamevora Leolam.
Only took us 12 minutes.
We invite you to take your seats.
So this is a little bit of a newer version of Ahavat Olam. Cantor Josh has introduced it before, but please, if you're able to, join with us. The words are on the screen. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Ukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadeta. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Ukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadeta. Haken Adonai Eloheinu, B'shofeinu u'kumeinu, Nasiach bechukecha, V'nitzmach b'divrei Toratecha, U'b'mitzvotecha, Le'olam va'ed. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Ukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadeta. Haken Adonai Eloheinu, B'shofeinu u'kumeinu, Nasiach bechukecha, V'nitzmach b'divrei Toratecha, U'b'mitzvotecha, Le'olam va'ed. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Ukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadeta. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Sounds good.
Please join us in chanting the words of Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, Bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'otecha, vehayu ha'devarim ha'ele Asher Anochi Mitzavecha Hayom Al Levavecha Vishinantam Levanecha Vedivarta Bam
It was you?
Veshivtecha Vavetecha Uvleptecha Vaderech Uvshokbecha
He also
Uvkumecha
did something, and he said that
Uvshartam Le'ot Al Yadecha V'hayuletotachot Beinenecha Uktavtam Al Mezuzot Beitecha Uvisharecha Leman Tizkeru V'asitem et kol mitzvotai V'tem kedoshim lelohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim Lihiot lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
It's so loud.
So, I was probably not that thrown, but I kind of combed the news on Independence Day. Nothing about the 5 to potentially 8 Americans that are still hostages in a foreign country. Imagine if you went to a foreign country and you visited, maybe you went to a music festival and you were kidnapped and the United States forgot about you. We continue each week to pray for those who remain in captivity, and we invite you to join us. The Kiddush cups outside remain a display to keep it at the forefront of those who enter our community and our foyer, that there are still people that are not free. And like the Kiddush cups, we think of the Shabbats that they don't enjoy. Please join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who releases the captives.
And before we pray for peace and security, although it
it's on the mixer tab, but it's not
for
even
release of captives,
you would have had to go
the
all the way down.
Nashville community, led by your collective clergy, will be leading a solidarity mission to Israel, November 12th to the 18th, and we hope that you will consider joining us. That information, including pricing and itinerary, will be mailed to you or made available to you. It'll be on our website and in your e-blast and in your messenger, and you'll be hearing a lot about it. So please consider it, and all questions can come directly to me. We will be based in Jerusalem for that trip. And I will just say, because it fits so beautifully, that Mitch, who is a guest with us this evening, said to me earlier today that people should know about ways to celebrate or to support Israel, and one of those ways is Israeli bonds, which I think is a wonderful way to invest in the country, and in fact, see a beautiful return on your investment as well financially. So
It was not a perfect.
please join us in praying for security and for safety and for shelter of peace with the words of Ashkenaz.
And I learned now I know to check as soon as I get that message.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim. We pray for a time when our worries will cease. Create in this moment a shelter of peace, a shelter of peace. Baruch atah Adonai Hapores Chad Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. chasdei avot v'imahot, umevigila livnei v'nehem, leman shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham, Bezrat Sarah, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim berofei cholim, Umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, milchamocha bal givurot, umido melech, melech memit umekaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atala hachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol, atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
And as always, we always save a little time for silence, for your own prayers and thoughts. And when you're done, you may be seated.
So just a word before our next song out of silence, which is not exactly out of silence because I'm talking. But we just celebrated the 4th of July, and it had me thinking about the 3 waves of immigration of Jews who came to America and really claimed America as their own, as their nation, as their country. And with those large Jewish waves of immigration from Eastern Europe in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Yiddish became a prominent feature of the American Jewish experience. And through Yiddish music, these new immigrants expressed their allegiance to their new homeland. So tonight, out of sort of silent prayer, I'll invite you to join me in America the Beautiful, first in Yiddish and then in English. O pretike mitchim lembret mit sangen wiberstehen, mit stolze purpurberg se seht auf Felder Frucht per green. Ameriki, Gott's Chesed kreunt dein Stamm, spreit Gut und Kraft mit Bruderschaft von Jam bis Helmjahr. Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
It's hard not to clap after that, isn't it, Hannah? Well, we make all sorts of noises to get God's attention in the hopes that God will be specifically paying attention when we think about people who need the prayers the most. On my list right now are Bill Schreibman, Toby Balzer, and Edria Ragusan, Ali McCormick, Deborah Brodsky, and Michael Marquis, Mark Hiller, Eddie Sandberg, John Mitchell, and Sidney Rappaport. If there are names of people that you know of that I have not mentioned from this community or from other communities that you're a part of, we like to hear those names out loud. We think of all people everywhere who are in need of such a prayer, and we invite you to sing along with us.
For the hurt of body and of soul, for our suffering and pain, as you heal the ones who came before, won't you heal us just the same? Refuat hanefesh v'haguf elna refana. Rifa'enu Adonai, refuah shalema. Refuat hanefesh v'haguf elna refana. Rifa'enu Adonai, refuah shalema. For the hurt of body and of soul, for our suffering and pain, as you heal the ones who came before, won't you heal us just the same?
Okay, folks, we have arrived at a very special part of the evening. This would be the part where one of us usually talks for about 10 minutes, and you listen, and you either agree, disagree, nod, or if you're Ron Hetty, very supportive, our next president, he's smart enough to write us afterwards and say it was really good no matter what happened. Every once in a while, we take a Shabbat, either when we're together or usually when we're not, and we just field questions from the crowd here. So this is your basic Ask the Rabbis. This is not Stump the Rabbis. We also have Google. When we first started as students and there wasn't an internet really, I know, try to explain to your kids that you were born before Google. They don't even believe us. So we would take books with us, like the Guide to a Jewish Life and a copy of the Torah with our notes, and because people would ask us questions and we would look them up in books, which sometimes we still do, and we actually know a fair amount of Hebrew and some Aramaic, and Rabbi Lori's a little better reading the Talmud, but the idea would be we can consult the sources. But what we want to do is use this 10 minutes, 12 or 15 if it gets really interesting, and answer questions that are on your mind. They could be logistical questions. They could be deep spiritual things that are keeping you up at night. We can't promise that we'll have the answers. We can pretty much guarantee we will disagree on whatever answers we give you. And part of the bonus of having multiple clergy, I'm going to get you in a second, is that you can have multiple perspectives.
Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, oh, I bet the rabbis didn't feel like writing a sermon this week. That is not true. You don't have to raise your hand, but I know you're thinking it. Really, actually, what happens is sometime around Sunday evening, we have a conversation like, do you want to speak this next Friday or do you want me to speak this next Friday? And sometimes we both want to, and we have to trade off. So more often than not, we have something we want to say. But this week we decided we haven't done this in a while, so let's do it.
We also both like to talk, as you all listen to us, and our children don't. Questions?
We have one right here.
Okay, what do you got? I'm going to bring the mic to you.
Do you think God would like judge people based on their thoughts or like their actions?
We're starting deep.
Wow, that was a great question.
Let's repeat it for those at home. Are they hearing yet? They are. Okay. So do you think that God cares more about our thoughts or our actions? Are you buzzing in?
Yeah, okay, I'll take this one. So I think it's an outstanding question, and I think depending on what kind of person and what religion they practice, they might answer it differently. But as a rabbi, I would say that according to Judaism, God is far more concerned with our actions than our thoughts. And here's the thing. It would be great if we thought happy thoughts about other people and positive thoughts about other people all day long. We know it's not reality. And what I love about Judaism is that it knows that we're not that good, right? Like we're gonna have failings, we're gonna think mean things, we're gonna sometimes want revenge, we're gonna sometimes want to say something really nasty, which is why Judaism says that may all happen, but you have to have enough control over yourself that you in fact do the right thing. So you could think, I am so annoyed with my sister right now, but you could still do something really nice for her, and maybe you won't be annoyed anymore. You'll turn that thought around. So in Judaism, God cares a lot more about our actions and our thoughts, or at least we think that's how it works. But depending on who you ask, they may say differently.
Well, I would concur that it does matter more how you act than what you think. But there have been rabbis who've said things like, you are where your thoughts are. Are your thoughts where they should be? So we do have a modicum sometimes of stopping ourselves from going down a bad thought process. That's probably good to do that. Somebody else trying to come up with a better question than that, or should we just call it an evening?
Oh, we got another one over here.
Okay, yeah, you guys are batting large tonight. Okay.
Why does our pets die?
Oh.
Rabbi Lori's not going to be able to handle this one.
I don't know. It's a really not good thing, right? Yeah, I know. Has anybody ever lost a pet? Raise your hand. There's really almost everybody. There's really almost nothing harder than that. It's just, they love us unconditionally. I think one of the reasons that pets die is because God wants to make sure that we get more than one. Right? Because there's a lot of pets out there. And we might not ever get another one if our pet just lived forever and ever and ever. And I think that every time we get a pet, it teaches us how to love. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons too. And did you ever see that movie where the pet goes to be in different pets? Did you see that dog movie? It's a great one for family. Okay, we'll talk about it after. But anyway, maybe when our pet dies, it just dies for us, but maybe it goes on to be a pet for somebody else. Could be, I don't know.
I would say that one of the most difficult things about having pets, or pets in general, is that they don't live long enough.
Yeah.
But I heard about a dog, apparently, again, at 31 years.
Wow.
Yeah. You have a question? Yeah. Go ahead.
You think that there will be a Messiah and the King of the Jewish nation?
Okay, Messiah question. This is what I have found about the progressive Jewish world. And when I say progressive, most of us don't think that God wrote the Torah. Is that upsetting anyone? Shh, just try not. Okay. Yeah, we believe there were divinely inspired experiences that people had, and they recorded those experiences, and we've received those experiences, and they speak about a messianic time. A messianic time would look very different than the time we live in now. The world would be at peace, right? We would not have the sense of fear that we currently possess. So I don't think we're close to it. And while we as a Jewish world pray for a messianic time and a Messiah to come, I think we're impatient enough in the progressive Jewish world. We're working ourselves the best that we can to create a messianic time. And so I don't want to consider us impatient. The Jewish people have been waiting for thousands of years for the world to be at peace. So we'll continue to pray for it. But we also believe that we can do our part where we can, and that it's not always up for us to finish the task, but we can't desist from at least contributing to it.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, I always understood that for in Judaism, it was less about an individual and more time, as Rabbi Flip mentioned. And there are certain symbols or signals that time is upon us, like Elijah coming through the door at our Passover Seder. Elijah is a big symbol of the Messianic time coming. And I remember one of your mentors, Rabbi Flip, Rabbi Robert Levine, wrote a book called The Messiah is Coming and You Are It. Because in Judaism, there is this idea, as you just mentioned with Rabbi Tarfon, that we have to be the ones who do the work to make this world the kind of place where the Messianic era settles in. So.
Okay, I'm going to Mitch. Here we go. Coming close.
I'm still relatively new, and I'm getting hit a lot with, and it's in a nice way, Christians talking to me about becoming Christian. You know, and what response do you give? I know they mean well, but it's always right away. It starts out with, what church do you belong? And you have to somehow say,
the Jewish church over on Old Hickory.
okay, you know, and you understand where it's going. And then it comes, you know, if you get to know, it's really, well, you don't believe in Jesus, you know. What's the Tennessee way of being polite?
Well, I do.
Bless your heart for that question, Mitch.
I do think, Mitch, that when somebody says, what church do you go to, it's their way of saying, like, hey, you know, do you have a community? Because if not, we don't want you to be without one. So I think it's coming from a really good place, and it's a default. And we do know that in Tennessee, you know, church affiliation drives synagogue affiliation, which is really great for us in a Jewish community. We're a lot closer and connected as a result. You know, but I also think, well, I'll let you speak to this. You say it so well, Rabbi Flip, about like this, what's the mission of Christianity, like of bringing people closer to Christ, and that's why.
So I'll tell a few quick stories. The first is, we deal with this all the time, Mitch, and of all different ages. Imagine being a young person in school and not realizing you're different, and then that question makes you feel very, very different. And so one of the ways Micah responds, through Julie Greenberg, our education director, we've created a very warm environment. There's people in this room that have been a part of it, that help teach in it, on Sundays, for people to come and explore what it means that we're different. Now, with regard to like responding to people, I'm still friends with the imam in town. We try to maintain a relationship, and he told me this excellent story. He said that one time an evangelical came to see him, and he was very belligerent. And he said, you know, you don't believe in Jesus, and the imam stopped him and said, my understanding is that you want me to become Christian. And he said, yes, that you want me to accept Jesus Christ. And he said, yes. And he said, you're being very mean to me. This is a very bad tactic to get me to do it. So some people, like Lori, are being polite. Some people all have a different mission. Our mission that I stated at the beginning of the service, that our community helped create in helping to heal the world and in building our community doing it, is very different than bringing people closer to Christ. It's a different thing. So they're not all the same. You've got to figure out your tactic. It could be humor. Jesus. I mean, it could be, thank you, I have found my path. I would love to learn more about your path and tell you more about. You've got to find your own way to navigate that difficult conversation, and it may not be the same in every situation, because you may be in someone's home and not want to offend them, or you may be at the supermarket and not care. I mean, it's just the truth. So I think one of the difficulties, and it's an opportunity too, is that we live in a place where people care about their Christianity, and Christians do have a different theology. They think differently about God. And what would be good is for us to feel comfortable in our theology, to be able to not be freaked out by their language like salvation or redemption. We just use better terms. Healing,
different
hope,
terms, right?
We've upgraded, we've iOS'd our terms. And so their terms make us feel a little uncomfortable, but you can share that you're feeling uncomfortable, or you can bury it and just be at a coffee, sort of cocktail party. We got time, I think, for two more, maybe. Okay, I'm coming over here.
So why do you think it's so complicated or hard for there to be common ground between the Jewish religions and the Christian religions when they are almost identical? I mean, there's the departure of deciding whether or not, Christ actually rose from the dead or was resurrected. But other than that, there's really no difference. How come it's so hard?
So
Western religious thought, go ahead.
Well, I would challenge the idea that there's no difference. I think there's significant differences, both in there's many shared values. I think there's many shared values, but I think the stories we tell about how we get to those values do look different. I'm just going to give one example, which is if we think about the story par excellence for the Jewish people, it's the Exodus from Egypt. Right? It's the one we hear the refrain over and over again in Torah, because I brought you out of Egypt to be God for you. And obviously we have an entire holiday, Pesach, dedicated to retelling that story. And what we learn from that Exodus from Egypt is that we were redeemed collectively as a community. And that filters into the fact that everything we do in Judaism is meant to be done in community, right? Both mourning, funeral, celebration, weddings, baby namings, brisses, you name it, b'nai mitzvah, like it's all done in community. And even many of our prayers, we require a minyan in order to recite them. So one of the things we learn from our redemption story is that while Moses may have been the sort of like spokesperson through which we got the instructions, God was speaking directly to all of us, and that this is a collective enterprise. It's why we sit in the sanctuary on Yom Kippur and say, gee, I had a great year and I'm pretty unscathed, my soul, but I'm responsible for all the other people in this room and their forgiveness process today. Now, if you look at the story in Christianity par excellence, it's the death and resurrection of Jesus, as you just mentioned, Craig. And if you look at that story, it talks about an individual redemption, right? If I have faith in Jesus as the resurrected Son of God, I will find salvation. Now, one is not better than the other, but they surely tell us a different story about our responsibility. And it's not that Christians don't care about community, they absolutely do, right? But those stories tell two very different ways of talking about how we relate to this idea of redemption. So I think sometimes it's really easy to say, because we have a lot of shared values, compassion and kindness and honesty and making the world better and reaching out to the poor and the disconnected, but not always that I think not always our stories and our rituals are parallel to each other. And the other thing I wanted to say when you asked that is, so I thought about this a lot, and I think that for some, and this kind of comes back to your question, Mitch, I'm guessing that for some Christians, because belief in Jesus is so intrinsic, Jesus as the Son of God is so intrinsic to your salvation, like not just in this life, but like the next life as well. And it's such a the primary brick in the layer of the foundation of who someone is as a Christian, that for somebody who's Jewish to say, oh, that's not a part of my theology, it's like, well, how could that not be a part of your theology? It's like the first brick. And I think there's a genuine, often, like sadness. Oh my God, you're going to burn in hell. Now, not all think that way at all, but I think sometimes when that's there, it's real. It's a genuine concern that comes from a good place. So I don't know, those are just a couple thoughts I had to your question. I hope that makes sense.
We interpret the world largely through a religious lens, not all of us. But the way we interpret the world is our perspective, it's not truth. And I think what happens, because maybe disease has killed more people, but I can't think of anything that's killed more people than religion. Because we think that our perspective is the only truth. And that just leads us down a...
Right, or the Torah and the Old Testament, depending on who you call it.
No, as she said.
Yeah. Yes, I hear what you're saying, and that's correct.
But we would say there are several paths to God. So has everyone ever heard of the Noahide laws? Google the Noahide laws. There are 7 laws in Judaism that if you follow them, no matter what religion you are, if you do these things, if there's a heaven, you get it. They're what you think they are. There's no sexual sins, and there's no murder, and there's no adultery, and there's actually one of them is you can't be cruel to animals. There's one positive one. You have to establish courts of law in your land. You have to have some form of justice for us to be able to relate to you. But But I say that because other religions have their ways of Noahide laws. How do we make this acceptable? We're the people of the book, because the Muslims called us the people of the book, because we had a book. I always say, really, we're the people of the story, and the story continues. Final shot. Okay, we're coming up. We got it.
So I'm a Christian, and most of us don't think you're going to burn in hell. But,
Thank you so much. It's hot enough as it is outside.
We're all good. We're all good. But our end game is redemption and salvation. What's your end game? You know, where do you go and what happens?
Ooh, wait. When you say what's your end game, do you mean like what is the afterlife, or what is our goal in this life? Ah, okay. So I would say our goal is not the afterlife.
I was going to say l'chaim, actually. I was going to say our goal is this life.
Yeah, our goal is this life, but our goal is, and this sounds really like trite, but I think it does sum it up, is to leave this world better than when we first got here. And so that's the incentive. This whole idea, and Rabbi Flip alluded to it, Rabbi Tarfon says in the Talmud, you are not required to finish the work, nor are you free to desist from it. So, and I think it's one of the reasons why there's never been like one particular dogma about the afterlife in Judaism. There's been like several ideas and views that have become like risen to a level of popularity throughout Jewish history, and then maybe another one surpasses it: resurrection, reincarnation, nothing, so on and so forth. But I think one of the reasons is because we are meant not to focus on that. But I think it's not compelling for some people.
We got okay. This is finally working, and we're running out of time. All right, we're going to go 1 and 2. We're going to be...
Yeah, actually, to piggyback on what Rabbi just said, actually, when we die, we do leave something behind, hopefully something people can learn from, that your life had a value that people think about. So we are everlasting if we actually do what we are supposed to do, follow Torah, etc., we will live on.
Yes. Okay, all good points. Hold on.
I wear the dog tag of a dead Israeli soldier. Why did God let him die?
Say again.
Thank you very much for coming this evening. We're going to move to Elaine. No.
What about it? I didn't hear what he said.
I mean, he asked a theodicy question, right?
What
so
did he say?
there are people dying. So there's an Israeli soldier that died. Why did the Israeli soldier have to die?
Oh, I mean, I honestly don't have a better answer than to why our pets have to die. Why do any of us have to die? I mean, it's why do bad things happen to good people? I mean,
it's a good book, Harold Kushner. Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, we're standing up here giving answers, but we don't have them all.
Yeah.
Especially
but
not
we
to that
can
one.
look them up in a book. The truth is, we believe everyone is their own Torah. You will always have your own experiences. They will always be more real to you than anything you read in a book, because you know they happen to you. What we invite you to do, as we call Micah sort of a mosaic, is to recognize that your experiences, however true they may feel to you, are not the only truth in the world. That there are several other perspectives. And part of how we maintain the health of our community is sharing our perspectives. It's inevitable that we're going to judge them, other people's perspectives, but to judge them with a sense of justice and a sense of compassion, and certainly with a sense of humility. So thank you for playing our Ask the Rabbis game. We'll do it again at some other point, yes. We're going to move to our concluding prayers. We always invite anyone who wants to come forward and be close to Torah as we open the Ark doors to do so, and we'll invite the community to rise one final time.
Aleinu l'shabech l'adon hakol, lateit gedula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam helkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
And it is here at the end of our service that we think about the eternality of the soul. We recall with reverence those people who have died at this time in years past: Howard Becker, Mickey Brown, Rose Dushin, Herman Fix, Ralph Gordon, Pearl Rachel Gressler, Joan Schwartz Harshman, Samuel Meyer Jacoby, Simon Landman, Selma Levine Lieberman, Norman G. Lipsky, Alan Miller, Millie Merman, Meyer Reinhold, Gersha Rogers, Leah Bergshire, Audrey Rosenthal Sloan, Ruth L. Smith, Philip Sobrain, Louis Swirling. We also recall the recent passings of Judith Richter, Carol Isabel Korn, John Holmes Wolfarth, Edward Horn, Dolores Edward, Susan Duffy, Mara Schwartz, Baxter Overton, Alan Frohl, Joe Fontella, Esther Didi Denbo Lippman, Chip Alberts, Senator Joe Lieberman, Alex Morgan, Iris Weissman, Matthew Curlin, Ellen Oakes, Claire Schwartz, Elizabeth Lazar, Richard Dick Eskin, Mary Spencer, Erwin Schwartz, Patricia Helen Barnett Wind, Lizzie Kappelman, Ava Marks, Marvin Millman, Joanne Middleton, Dr. Marvin Schwartz, Sylvia Samus, Shirley Greenberg, Joseph Morton Weinstein, David Alberts, Trudy Levy, Charles Strobel, Mimi Mitchell, Isa Stanzel Burns. If there's names I've neglected to mention or just ones you'd like to say aloud.
Stan Green, Arnie Sure.
We think of all people who have lost their lives. We join together in Kaddish Yatom, our mourner's cottage. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayachon v'yomachon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yitzpa'ar v'yitzroman v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal. Shemei dekudisha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birkata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Tamiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlomo Rabba min shamaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom ben Ramav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. We ask as always that the source of peace send peace to all people who are mourning, comfort to all people who may feel bereaved. And we say one final time together. Amen. We end with a kiddush and a closing song. Yeah?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'ratzon himchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila lamikra'ei kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki banu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-shabbat l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avot.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the Shabbat.